Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome your panel, Christina Richmond, Alex Cherones, Mikhail Istomin, and Chuck Brooks.
Good afternoon. So in this session, as you know, we're going to talk about artificial intelligence and machine learning and how they impact security as we innovate, as we transform our IT environment. So we'll also look at advanced threat detection techniques, but most especially threat analytics. And we're going to look at the adversary. We're going to look at how the adversary is using these technologies, artificial intelligence and machine learning, to get the better of us. We're in an age of digital transformation. It's pretty obvious to all of us now. We're well on our way. And the underpinnings of digital transformation are cloud, security, and data. And so the investment in digital transformation is nearing almost 50% adoption, according to a study that we launched in January. And it's well on its way to 60%. So it's reaching that maturity inflection point. So now that it's getting up on top of that hill, there are add-on services that are being invested in, most notably security. That doesn't mean that security wasn't invested in by a lot of companies as they started their digital journey, but from a maturity scape that we've done at IDC, we know that there are laggards and leaders in bringing security along with digital transformation. Do you foresee any current human security tasks being fully automated in the near future? And do you already see this happening? And if yes, if you could give us some examples, Alex. And then we're going to open it up to the other panelists as well.
Sure. So in the paradigm of crawl, walk, run, I'd say definitely we're probably in a leisurely stroll in there somewhere right now with the application of some advanced analytics, particularly as it pertains to threat detection. So in the yesteryear, there was a lot of heavy lifting, a lot of high-touch human interaction with the use of rules-based alerting and making sure that those rules were tuned to each customer's environment and making sure that they were very particular. The challenge with that was it was difficult to scale that, and both from a human capital perspective as well as from a data perspective. And as we continue to see these data volumes explode, everyone steps back and says, what is the most effective and efficient way for us to deal with this data deluge? And so, we've started applying some of these advanced analytics for the identification of threats. Thanks in part to a lot of the folks like these gentlemen over here and what they do, we're able to apply some of those models to our data sets. And so, absolutely, I think that we're already starting to see some of that automation take place today. And we have a keen eye that we kind of look for two big things: it's speed and accuracy when it comes to the application of these models against our threat data.
So you can imagine artificial intelligence, more likely machine learning, being able to distill the data and figure out what is real and what isn't real. That alone is a huge value and a huge savings in money. And you still see other applications with analyzing anomalies on the logs and looking at threat horizons and using data. I think one of the things is that when you're talking about full automation, I think that human judgment still has to be part of the equation because you're dealing with data that may be imperfect. So I think there will always be a role for humans overseeing it. I think we're going in a big way towards automation.
So Mikhail, let me turn to you. We wanted to look at the adversary, right? Using these machine learning, deep learning, neural language techniques. Is it a matter of time? Are the adversaries already using these? Do you foresee them getting smarter with these technologies? What's the state of the adversary for us today?
So one thing you have to keep in mind that machine learning, deep learning is a tool. And as any tool, it can be used for good, but it can also be used for bad. As long as there is a gain involved, people will find a way to exploit stuff. So for machine learning, there's a few fields that can be misused. For example, like attacks against machine learning models, but that's still propagating. Yes, is machine learning, we're getting more and more products that employ machine learning, but it's not as wide propagated yet. Another thing, though, is using the machine learning as a tool to assist with already existing attacks. And a simple example of this would be social engineering, phishing, and such. There is already papers talking about how to train a machine deep learning model on a corpus of tweets of specific user, and then have that machine model produce tweets that's almost indistinguishable from the original user. And that can be instead to other text applications like mails and websites even. And that's a wide field for phishing or even spear phishing.
I think there's a lot of development going on, particularly in machine learning area right now, to be able to use horizon scanning to detect anomalies, to work at looking at logarithms and other things that are done with pure analytics. So I think a lot of those are being developed, but the problem, as you mentioned earlier, it takes a lot of investment. There are only a few that can do that, and that's why it's necessary to have usually managed services. But also the bad guys. The bad guys can access the tools just as easily, and are doing so. And they're combining it already with social engineering. And it doesn't have to be that sophisticated, because most of us don't have the strong layered defenses to defend us, particularly for small businesses, to defend against that threat. So the bad guys have a strong advantage.
So one of the things I'm seeing in cloud adoption is there's a lot more vulnerabilities that we're not protecting against because of the way our data is in a hybrid environment. It's going in and out of private cloud, multiple public clouds or multi-cloud. It's going in and out of our own data centers. And we're not necessarily doing a good job of data at rest and data in motion.
Be interested in the panel's opinion of what the future looks like in the AI and machine learning space. If you look with computing increasing and data increasing, if you look out over 5 or 10 years, what does that look like to you? And what do you see as the biggest opportunities or threats that we'll see in the future?
I love it. I was thinking for a wrap-up, we'd do a lightning round. So Chuck, you're on the hot seat.
Well, I'm not sure if you're aware, but DARPA just is investing $2 billion into artificial intelligence, and that tells you something alone. But I think the most frightening scenario right now is it's a competitive race, particularly with us and China, who's also investing billions and billions of dollars. So whoever gets that capability of artificial intelligence and combining it with quantum computing and quantum encryption will rule the data, and will have ability to synthesize that data. So it's a scary scenario in that way. I would look at the big picture of state versus state, then looking at the business versus business, although that's an issue with monetary implications.
Mikhail.
One thing I come to think of is that as time progresses, the amount of data can increase because attackers will start using artificial intelligence and defenders will have to use artificial intelligence to just keep up. And this is, as Chuck mentioned, going to be a balancing act. So in reality, the amount of work analysts do might not change. It's just the amount of handled by the machine for them would be larger, but they will still have that part that they still need to do.
Interesting. Any last thoughts, Alex?
Sure. From a threat aperture perspective, I'd say there's really, in the mid to short term, there's really probably two malicious exploits that you'll probably see take off, which is wide-scale use of AI for spear phishing, so crawling social media sites and getting critical information about a particular target, I think is one that we'll see an uptick in. And I think a second one is really the dissemination of fake news. So Mikhail was talking about that earlier, but I think we're probably going to see that the use of AI to create very human-toned articles is probably going to be something we'll see a lot more of.
Thanks for watching. For more videos from the AT&T Business Summit, click subscribe.